While this is a period piece from oh so long ago, to me it's a modern interpretation of Jane Austen's original novel. It fascinates me that the book was written in 1813, and to this day, it's still relevant. Mothers still act like Mrs. Bennet, love is still desired over complacency, class is still at the forefront of most people's minds, and first impressions are usually wrong. Jane Austen was able to tell a delicate story with humor, wit, and satire. However, to me, this book is a product of its time. The old-timey language was hard to get through, and I didn't understand what was being said. Listen to this passage from the novel. She respected, she esteemed, she was grateful to him. She felt a real interest in his welfare. And she only wanted to know how far she wished that welfare to depend upon herself, and how far it would be for the happiness of both that she should employ the power, which her fancy told her she still possessed, of bringing on her the renewal of his addresses. Can someone help me out here? Be my spark notes. Everything I just read means nothing. This whole passage went right over my head, and I feel like I was just saying the words randomly. This all sounds like gibberish. However, I'm glad Joe Wright was able to step in and help me understand. He was able to take the source material and put a modern twist on it for a whole new generation to love and hold dear.
I was always trying to find a balance between creating something that was kind of fairy tale, but also very real, and it held that balance, I think.
At a first glance, it doesn't feel modern because of the costumes, the buildings, the overall scenery. Jane Austen's book is 200 years old, and the movie looks like it's 200 years old. The biggest way the story feels progressive is accomplished through Keira Knightley's performance. It feels like she's portraying a woman from the 1800s, but with the confidence of a voting woman from the 21st century. This in no way ruins her integrity as a character in a period piece, but makes the source content more attractive to a younger generation. More attractive for somebody like me. The subtlety throughout this movie is beautiful. Her giggle is such a small moment in time that it shouldn't mean anything. But Joe Wright made the conscious decision to linger on her face just a little bit longer than expected, and in that moment created the first hints of hostility towards Mr. Darcy. These little moments start to happen more and more often, especially because Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy are having more interactions between each other. We as the audience start to see something else brew, something not so tender. The very title of this book comes into play, and the tension starts to build. It grows and grows and grows. The tension becomes so thick that their banter becomes unbearable. My body tightens as I wait for some sort of explosion to occur. Her prejudice gets in the way of seeing past his arrogance, and his pride clouds his judgment, assuming he knows all that needs to be known about her. All of this enhances the movie to be tender at every moment. However, it leaves behind hints of trouble along the way.
Are you rejecting me?
I'm sure that the feelings which, as you've told me, have hindered your regard will help you in overcoming it.
Might I ask why, with so little endeavour at civility, I am thus repulsed?
And I might as well inquire why, with so evident a design of insulting me, you chose to tell me that you like me against your better judgment.
No, believe me, I
if
didn't
I
mean...
was uncivil, then that is some excuse, but I have other reasons. You know I have.
What reasons?
Do you think that anything might tempt me to accept the man who has ruined, perhaps forever, the happiness of a most beloved sister?
When we finally get the explosion, it was worth the wait. I felt myself exploding along with it. Each action has an immediate reaction, and each reaction gives off some of the most photogenic scenes of the whole entire movie. It's all because of Joe Wright's transformation of history. However, Roman Olsen was the cinematographer slash director of photography and deserves a lot of the credit when it comes to Joe Wright's overall vision when retelling this beloved classic. The amount of heavy tension and the intense suspense was a very unique choice when retelling Pride and Prejudice, as it was comparable to how I would have felt when watching a horror movie. This I find interesting, especially considering that Roman Olsen has most recently been the cinematographer on the movie Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. The amount of tension that was used in this horror flick was the same amount used on the Pride and Prejudice reboot. As we all know, tension and suspense plays out nicely in a horror movie, but for the lucky few who had the pleasure of watching Pride and Prejudice, we all got to see horror techniques applied towards a romantic period piece instead. I really appreciate the quality of care taken by Austen throughout the development of Pride and Prejudice, as he made every scene look like a work of art, similar to how Jane Austen's novel is perceived as a work of art. Each shot is filled with small details from the book and of that time. Careful consideration was taken when choosing the set, wardrobe, and even the timing of when to shoot a certain scene. All of this added to the fairy tale romance that I have adored for years, and I think others should adore it too. Watching this movie is going to astound you, and you'll be able to see how gorgeous every scene is. There are a lot of reasons why I love this particular version of Pride and Prejudice. Between Joe Wright's vision, Roman Olsen's execution, and the entirety of the cast, Jane Austen's universe was created. We as the viewer were able to be transplanted into a fictional universe where love triumphs all. This was not a word-for-word retelling of the book, but an elevated version of its prior self. It's an adaptation that was taken in a certain direction because of Joe Wright's perception of the novel.
These are characters that you've got to be truthful about when you play them, and then that's very easy. And you do. Every different person that reads the books will bring something different to the characters and to the story. It'll mean something different to everyone, and therefore I'm sure it means something different to me and Matthew than it did to people who've played it previously, and therefore it's always going to be different.
It's different from the PBS remake. It's different from the 1940s version, and it's different from the book. This version stands out, and I really encourage anyone willing to give it a shot to just go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's gonna be really easy for you to find it. Just search for it. It's an unexpected product. Even when comparing it to other Jane Austen movie remakes, this is unique and it's special.
It really is. It was enchanting, really enchanting.